This is the Body Wise podcast. Thank you for joining Laura and Cristina for another intimate exploration of collective wisdom.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Body Wise podcast. I am super excited today to have Angie Alt on the show. Angie is another NTP. She's a nutritional therapy practitioner, certified health coach, author of Alternative Autoimmune Cookbook, and the co-author of the Autoimmune Wellness Handbook, which that book is a game changer for anyone with autoimmune disease. I love that book. I recommend it all the time.
Thank
so
you.
Good. Yeah, she's also the creator of the SAD to AIP in 6, which is SAD to Standard American Diet, for those of you who don't know. SAS Phase 2 and the Living Well Collective, a series of online group health coaching programs that have helped thousands of people on the path to wellness by teaching them how to transition their diets from the Standard American Diet to autoimmune protocol, which is specifically good for people with autoimmune disease. Additionally, Angie partners with doctors, and she's conducted, which is I think I've cited these in my articles and some of my books, like these studies that prove that AIP works for irritable bowel disease, for Hashimoto's, right?
Right.
And for thyroid disease, and being like, look, like there's medical research. So it's amazing that you did that, because for such a long time, doctors would be like, oh, it's just correlation,
Yeah.
don't have anything to do with it. We're like, well, look now.
Yeah.
We got proof.
I was like, felt cute, might do a study.
So thank you for that. And together with Mickey Trescott, they run autoimmunewellness.com and the Autoimmune Wellness Podcast and AIP certified coach. So, and I think you can add to your list, like you're being a super amazing like activist this year, and just really like brought the thunder online in a very unapologetic way, which I think we really need in the wellness space, because we need leaders like that. We need people who know what they're talking about and do it fearlessly. So people like me, where I'm like, yes, wait, she said that, because you say it so well. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about all this.
Yeah, my pleasure. So obviously your business is all up in this space, and I want to just make that very clear. Like, tell us very much, like, you've been at this for a very long time. It is very much your income, your bread and butter, because I think people have to know like what's on the line. I think people sometimes think, well, it's nice that you can afford to do that. I'm like, no, you do risk your upsetting people and losing followers and losing business, because this is what you do. You work in this holistic wellness space.
Yeah. I mean, I started the autoimmune protocol myself in May of 2012. So it was just a really, really new space at that time. There was, like a few mentions from some of the paleo folks, and Sarah Ballantyne had just started to do some research with her PhD background and start to put, kind of some more legs and structure around the AIP. She was just starting to blog about it a little bit at the Paleo Mom. And I just happened to find that information, kind of stumble across it. I was very, very sick. I have celiac disease, endometriosis, and lichen sclerosis. I was in and out of the ER by that point with like increasingly anaphylactic reactions to foods. And I was scared. And so I got started, and in 6 weeks, my gluten antibodies dropped by like half. And like 6 months later, it was like I had a new body. And like a year later, I changed everything about my life, including my career. So ever since then, that's what I've been doing, along with, a handful of the other weirdos like me who decided to take a jump on this AIP thing in the beginning. We started kind of growing this AIP community and doing this work. And, it's been, we're getting close to a decade of this kind of work now,
Right.
So I'm very invested. I'm definitely, this is what I do. This, I work in this community. I care about this community. I helped grow and found this community. So it is an investment to me that, of course, I don't want to do anything that will damage it. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I started to see that there were some deeper issues that we were kind of ignoring, to be honest, in our space. And then especially in the last like year and a half, And especially since the beginning of this year, I really just put the pedal to the metal on it. And I was like, listen, we have to address these issues. It's really important. And yeah, there's been some backlash. There definitely has been some backlash. You know, I've lost thousands of followers on my Instagram account. It has impacted my bottom line in terms of my income. But, you know, I've said it a lot of times, and I've really encouraged other practitioners in our space to say it, you know, my values are not for sale.
100%.
And I want the whole community, everyone in it, to be represented and cared for. And if that means that I have to ruffle some feathers, so be it.
Right. And I think it's important for people to understand that even the people who are unfollowing you, even the ones who might not agree, you still also care about their health. Like, yes,
Yes.
we understand that people, despite their, their beliefs, all can benefit from AIP and from healing their bodies holistically. But again, if they're not willing to also care for the other members of the community, then okay, then leave, because you are considering the community as a whole. But
Mm-hmm.
people are so scared of that, of the bottom line, of ruffling the feathers, of, well, we're just here for food. You're just here for nutrition, like stick to that. But when you, again, this is what this episode is about, kind of why, like, what does holistic really mean?
Yeah. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I feel like that's where we have kind of the biggest disconnect, I think, in this community. Um, you know, in the simplest terms, if you go and look up like the dictionary meaning of holistic, it's like, it means that you can't describe something, you can't really talk clearly about something without characterizing it as referenced to the whole. And so if you simplify that, that means everyone and everything is linked.
Mhm.
And for me, I see a lot of people in our space kind of throwing around that term holistic or the term holism, and they are ignoring the whole. And I felt like that was just disingenuous, and we needed to address it and really help people understand that first. So probably, I went back through my Instagram feed today because I was trying to remember when I first started talking about this. And I think I found my first reference to it about like 2.5 years ago. I started saying, hey, I started there. I was like, let's start talking about what holistic really means. Cause I was like, if I'm going to build up to this way much bigger kind of, this message that everybody's not quite ready to embrace, I have to start by talking about what does holistic mean. And I started kind of hammering away at that. And, that message grew. You have to reference the whole. And for instance, in the autoimmune space and in the AIP community specifically, and I'm more and more talking to the whole larger health and wellness space. I'm kind of even going beyond our AIP community. But if we're talking about AIP specifically, it really impacts disproportionately people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Black people, people with a Hispanic heritage, a Latin heritage, they're actually even more impacted often than the Caucasian community is. And so if we're saying that we're invested in holistic health and wellness, but we're not making sure that their needs are met, then we're really not serving our whole community. So you got to stop using that word holistic if you don't want to serve the whole.
Mm-hmm. Right, 100%. And it's interesting because I think that, we want to talk like very statistical and what we can, quantify why that happens, why it does. I think obviously, socioeconomic status, access to quality food is a big one, but
Mm-hmm.
getting a little more woo, which is funny because it's something that really people talk a lot about in like the wellness. And when you think about like the, kind of like rich white women wellness, now the big thing is
Yeah.
like, oh, because we all go to do ayahuasca and we talk to our ancestors and there's ancestral trauma and all that stuff. Like, you want to talk about ancestral trauma? Like,
Yes.
let's talk about the Black community,
Yes.
and like, why do you think these diseases are manifesting so much? I mean, I think other than the things that we can quantify, I think that that's a big piece that, again, in the holistic world where people are doing these, super expensive retreat programs to
Right.
go and cleanse their auras and get, energy healers, like who has access to that stuff?
Yes.
You know, and no one's talking about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If folks go and look it up, and forgive me if I'm, probably mispronouncing the name of it, but there's a study called the Overcalix study, and it is about Swedish people going through a famine in the 1800s. And what they did is they went generation by generation studying them and saw how that traumatic experience of starving to death led to changes in their genetic expression, where this is like epigenetics that we're talking about, and how that trauma basically transferred through DNA and eventually manifests in other ways. They have other kinds of disease problems later on, and that trauma just kind of basically ripples through the generations. Well, yeah, this is exactly what you're talking about. If we're going to talk about intergenerational trauma and healing it and what it means, like, what about what happened to the African community in terms of the slave trade and how that has now affected the Black community in the United States? We have to address those things. We have to see that they're real. If we're going to apply them to, middle-class white women going to their spiritual cleansing retreat, like we have to, think about it even more seriously for these other communities.
Right. Rachel Cargle had a really good post on this, and I love her following her. She has, the Great Unlearn, and her, we'll link her stuff in the bio too, because she's just such a great resource. But she, about like kind of like whiteness co-opting wellness. And it's interesting because the conversation goes even further, like thinking about ancestral diets, thinking about all these, the things, the tools that we use, it's essentially cultural appropriation. Like so many of the foods that we eat to heal, and the sprouting, the soaking, like think about where these came from. They came from indigenous cultures. And now we're making it unaffordable for them, but we're using it. And it is, in the paleo space, so completely not part of the conversation. And yet you go to, Paleo Effects or one of these conferences, and it's hugely predominantly white, middle, and upper class people.
Yep.
You're like, well, that's not right.
Well, and it's not, like in 2015, I tried to start a series on the autoimmune wellness blog called Diversity in AIP. And what I wanted to do was show that just because you might need to embrace a protocol like the autoimmune protocol to help heal from autoimmune disease, that there were ways for us to work on that template and modify that template so that we could still honor people's heritage, their food heritage. We could still honor their ethnicity and the ethnic foods that were important to them. We could still pay attention to important cultural celebrations. We could pay attention to religious beliefs and how that might impact their food template. And that was not something that we were talking about in the paleo and autoimmune paleo space at all at that time. And honestly, it didn't get very much traction with the community for a reason. And hopefully now that's going to start to change, and we're going to see it, kind of that conversation get revived. But that was my whole point. And the reason I had started it is because in my group programs, I was more and more having a mix of people, and I was, for instance, I was having Muslim people saying like, I want to do this, but I have some special concerns around halal, and I was like, I support you. Let's figure that out. Or I was having Egyptian Christians that were like, I want to do this, but I need to be able to take communion. And I was like, okay, let's figure that out together. You can do that. Or, Indians who wanted to still enjoy some of the foods from their background. So trying to have that conversation, I feel like it's only grown in importance, so that we can include those people. And now I think we have to even go beyond that, and we need to start having the root cause conversation. So this is like the holistic thing. People in this space love to go on and on about root cause healthcare and root cause medicine, and you got to find your root cause and blah, 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 blah. And they love to use the term and kind of, it's like their buzzword, but they're ignoring the root cause for vast sections of this community, like the socioeconomic problems, the food insecurity, like we have to go so much farther. The lack of representation, the way that they get talked to and talked down to and dismissed in the healthcare system. I mean, if we, as white people in this space, have had trouble going to the doctor and getting our autoimmune diseases addressed, it's twice, 3 times, 4 times is hard on the Black and brown community.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember when I didn't do it for a long time because now I work with Dr. Campbell, but when I first started taking clients one-on-one as an NTP, I had I had a lot of Black and Latino people, and because of people that follow me, and it's weird because it didn't really, I'm Cuban, I'm Latina, you know, like I do have brown skin. It's weird because someone that like, it's not a metaphor. I'm like, it's true. Like sometimes it's weird for me identifying because in my family, not everyone is brown skin, because that's Latinos, we kind of all come in shades.
Yeah.
But sometimes I forget, like I am part of that representation. But I feel like I need to own it more, because even that experience of being nightshade free and being Hispanic. And when I talk about it, the messages and the comments I get from Mexicanas, from Indian people, from people who like, you know, I had to learn how to make curry a different way. I had to like, I miss salsa. I miss my mother's food. And even the notion that what if our ancestors or, you know, our grandmothers are ashamed because we can't eat the way that they taught us to, and, you know, really finding a perspective in that conversation. But it's so true because it is so hard. And I think that that's the representation. We need more. We need more Black health coaches. We need more Indian health coaches, Muslim health coaches, and people in this space. But then that goes again, root cause. Why aren't there more? You know, are the schools, is the NTA, you know, creating a safe space and welcoming space for these people, you know?
Right, exactly. So, you know, for Sarah and Mickey and I, you know, we partnered a few years ago to create AIP certified coach. So we take people who have existing base certifications or licenses. This could be anybody from a medical doctor to nutritional therapists like us, health coaches, etc. And we teach them the deep science behind AIP, you know, everything that Sarah has researched, so that they really have that grounding. And then we also teach them, you know, really practical implementation that Mickey and I have learned from years of working with this population, especially with, you know, my group program and the thousands of people in the medical studies. You know, we've really kind of worked out a lot of the kinks in that process of introducing people to AIP. And we decided this year, one of the really important things that we needed to do to try to address some of these root cause problems and make sure that there was better representation was give scholarships to practitioners, you know, from Black and brown communities, et cetera, BIPOC folks, to come in and get the training with us, so that we would have more of these coaches, nutritional therapists, doctors, et cetera, in the AIP community, because they can best serve their own folks. They know about all those struggles that you were just talking about, like what is it like if their mothers and grandmothers are feeling rejected because to heal they can't eat that food anymore. They're the ones who are going to know how to have those conversations. They're the ones who are going to know how to reinterpret those foods through the lens of AIP the best. They're the ones who are going to know most closely the struggles that the people in their communities are experiencing while they're trying to heal. So we started out offering 5 scholarship spots, and we gave away 8 this year. So, and we're going to do it every time we enroll. We enroll twice a year. We're giving away at least 5 scholarships every enrollment from now till the end of it, you know, because we're trying to build an army of people that can come alongside people with autoimmune disease and show them that diet and lifestyle can be part of their toolbox. And that army needs to be all colors.
Right. And because it does affect, like I said, everybody. And I see it less, like I see less people of color, you know, yes, they have the disease as a diagnosis, but they're not managing it, you know, through diet. They don't go there. And it's funny, interesting, because I noticed that like older, like my mother's generation, white people are like, they'll do this stuff. They do Whole30s. They change their diets. Like they're on that. They're on it but for someone like, then I see my dad who has MS, and like, I'm like, and I try to explain to him and he's like, no, you don't como pan. I'm like, Dad, he's like, I don't eat bread. I'm like, relax, you totally do. There's not all the time. But then he like drinks a beer and I'm like, you don't understand. Like, and I tried to explain it to him. I mean, he has my book, it just sits in his house. But, it doesn't register the same way because food is so much like what his mom, made him. And it's just so, they don't see food that way. And again, even if specifically the Cuban community, like doctors are like live and die by what they say. They're very, very well respected. But I think that it would help to have more resources. I mean, I sometimes kick myself in the butt. I'm definitely not equipped. Like would need help, but like even creating more resources in different languages, in Spanish, like oh my gosh. I mean, I know that there is a few, I mean, the autoimmune, Mickey's book is in Spanish, right?
Mickey's book is in Spanish and German. My book is also in German. I think Eileen has some books that are in
book,
Spanish.
Yeah, the Pocket Handbook.
In our program, we had a lot of Spanish speaking and French speaking practitioners. So we translated the materials in our program to cover those two languages. And I hope in the future, we'll do other translation projects.
Awesome. That's amazing.
So that, the materials we give our practitioners can be used with these other communities. But, I mean, part of it is if folks in these communities aren't willing to embrace these dietary changes at the same level as we're seeing with the white community, it's partly on us. It's partly 100%. Our fault. And I think for the most part, the reason for that is our misunderstanding of what holistic means and our misinterpretation of what root cause means. If we don't address the root cause issues that they know are contributing to autoimmune disease and illness in their communities, then of course they're not going to come and embrace what we're saying might fix it. We have to talk about things like food insecurity. We have to talk about things like, whether or not they can even get to a grocery store thanks to the long-term effects of redlining. Also, honestly, like part of what initially spurred me to really start talking about this stuff publicly was the shootings.
Right.
And I was like, how am I supposed to be telling people to like download my grocery list and go to the grocery store if they can get shot at the grocery store?
Right.
We have to talk honestly about those things. If we really care about the health and wellness of the people that we're serving, well, you know what is really antithetical to a healthy, well-lived life? Getting shot. We need to talk about those things.
Right. And the stress of like, I just imagine what like they're feeling, like the constant stress and fear. Do you think it's not playing in and exasperating their issues and their symptoms? 100%. And so it's this constant, like, fight or flight mode, and that no one's taking into consideration. And 100%, I think that there's this like echoing silence in the wellness space about that. Like, no, I mean, I know you talk about like, why do politics matter, right? In the health and wellness community. Let's get into that because that's really, and we use politics because we don't believe that, human rights are political, but, it is what it is. But yeah, there's been this echoing silence, and when, the shootings, and which again have been going on for years. And I really think, with George Floyd, it was just this like tipping point. And maybe it was just because the video was just so graphic, because he said mama. Like, there could be a number of different reasons of why that one kind of just was the catalyst to this movement that just has exploded this year. But it's been going on forever. Forever. It's just now we have cell phones. Now people are paying attention. But imagine of the racism and the hate crimes that are caught on film. For every one that we actually see, the thousands that no one sees.
Right. I mean, when I first started kind of talking about it 4 or 5 years ago, and the first few times that I spoke out about a Black person being killed by the police, I got a lot of pushback and I lost a lot of people in the community. But I also saw that there was a segment of people who were very ready and very eager to have that conversation. And they were willing to see the same the same connections that I was trying to make in speaking about it. And I just decided to keep going. And it also slowly made I'm a white woman speaking to a mostly white community, and slowly it made some safe corners in my space for Black and brown folks to join me. And I was like, yeah, because I want to serve all these people. And so I got to talk about this because this is part of the reality that they're facing. And and I get it. I get it that it's scary to talk about politics. And I know why so many practitioners in our space are trying to avoid it like tooth and nail, like major head in the sand effect going on. But I get it. I understand why it is scary. And every single time I post, I do it scared. And every single time I do it scared, I gain confidence, I get firmer in my values, and I more connect to the community that I really want to serve and who wants to be served by me.
Right.
And that feels good and right. And the political thing is, we're calling it politics, but how can I serve my client and help her achieve health and wellness if I don't pay attention to the detriments to her safety and security? How can I help her achieve wellness if I don't acknowledge that the leadership in the country is like undermining her access to food or shelter or healthcare or education? How can I help my client achieve wellness if I don't acknowledge the fact that the planet she lives on is in an environmental and climate change crisis, and maybe her community in particular is going to be the first to be impacted by it? Those political things are part of the root cause of serving her. And I feel like the people in our space who are in a leadership role need to be forcefully having those conversations.
Right. Yeah. And it is
Political
conversations. It can be scary, but I agree with, when you feel so, I don't know, like I remember early on in the early years of Castaway Kitchen, I would kind of like drop little things here and there, sporadically if something was really like, because you just can't, like, I can't open the news and see something and then be like feeling this thing, but then be like post like some food porn. Like that's just, I can't, I can't, it's like,
Yeah.
And so, and I had kind of like dropped some things over the years, but, this summer it was just like, this is it. Like, this is all that's going on right now. Um, and I think that it has made me rethink a lot of like how to serve the community and, what is important to talk about, because it does make everyone feel, you have to make everyone feel safe. Like you just can't pander to a certain community to one, because you're like, oh, well, these people are going to like, whatever, like pay my bills. Like, so I'm just going to pander to them. Like, again, your ethics are not for sale,
Yep.
like, and I think that it is important though, to, like you said, even if you are speaking to predominantly white women, that is important because as we know, like when you're trying to learn, it can be, I know a lot of people maybe don't speak out because they don't feel comfortable. They don't have the confidence. They don't want to mess up. They feel embarrassed maybe, or super unsure, and even the wording or what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And, I also people follow and learn from,
Mm-hmm.
the Black activists out there. I literally, my feed completely changed. I like unfollowed like everyone in the wellness space and then just started following like all activists and then like travel and puppies. Like, that's
Yeah.
but because I'm learning so much, but I'm not going to sit there and ask them questions because again, they are already giving free content, a lot of which I pay for. I pay for the courses or their Patreon accounts, but again, not the place to be asking more of these specifically Black women who are already giving content and teaching us. But I think then it's important to have white women that you could go to that are better learned to say, hey, that's where you slide into the DMs and say, hey, I'm grappling with this. I want to say this. Is it correct? And you can bounce ideas off of, because again, even, white women or non-Black people who want to practice allyship need to have a space where they can learn and make mistakes and fumble and ask questions that is not asking them of the Black community. Because don't ask them your questions.
Totally. I mean, it's part of the reason that I'm speaking up and speaking out, because I hope that I'm serving as an example to my fellow white people, especially women, about how to do it and hopefully get it right. But also I'm serving as an example of like the bravery about maybe getting it wrong. Like when we're learning something, of course we're going to have stumbles and we're going to have falls and we're going to make mistakes. Like nobody was born knowing how to walk. You know,
Right.
we all messed up in the beginning. So the same thing is true here. And maybe I'm going to get it publicly wrong, but I care about that other group of people so much. I'm willing to publicly screw it up.
Right.
And I hope that I'm showing other white women that they can be that brave too. And in order to fully serve the people we say we want to serve and just change this whole narrative. You know, like honestly, if we don't want to talk about this stuff anymore, then we need to fix it.
Right.
If you want to have a feed that's just full of beautiful food porn that you want to look at all day and like self-care inspo, then you need to help us fix this problem.
Right.
And then we can go back to focusing on the like unicorns and fairy tales. And I love that stuff too. I do, but that's not going to solve these problems.
Right.
We have to dig in and do the work, and we have to be willing to talk about really uncomfortable stuff and maybe get it wrong. We have to be willing to take the time and the money and invest in learning how to do it right. From the leaders who, you know, if I've been talking about it for 4 or 5 years, imagine how long those people have been talking about it. They know their stuff. That's how we get behind them and we learn and we change this, you know, we change this issue.
Right.
We have to be willing to imagine how much better it could be and dig in and do the work. You know, when I helped get this AIP community off the ground, it was because I had a vision for a future where using dietary and lifestyle changes could be part of the toolbox that you are introduced to the day you get that diagnosis in your doctor's office. I want to change the standard of care for people.
Right.
Instead of being told the things that I was told, which was basically like, it's hopeless. And maybe if it gets really, really bad and you get even more autoimmune diseases, we'll put you on a crazy drug. That was it. I want people to be told, hey, there's multiple options here and we can help you get there. I want the same kind of like future in these other areas that are impacting people's lives. I want to be brave enough to imagine a future where we don't have to worry about whether people are food insecure and it's impacting their health.
They're going to get
where
shot
we
when they
don't
go to the store.
they don't get shot when they go to the store. They don't get shot while they're resting in their own homes. Like that, I want that.
Right.
So it means you got to dig in and do the hard work.
And it's okay to make, I mean, again, making mistakes publicly is terrifying. And like, God, do I know it? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, it was very stressful and you're right, terrifying sometimes to just post something and then you get these questions and sometimes you don't even know the answers to them. And it's okay to wait to look it up and then give them an answer or just say, I don't know. Like, you know, food insecurity is something which, you know, I started really thinking about actually at the end of when I was coming to the end of the NTA program, because they kind of touch on it super lightly at the end.
Mhm.
And I remember living in Hawaii and when we first started the blog and we were kind of broken, I would just shop at the military base, which is still better than like what a lot of other people have it. But, you know, then I think about that. So my dad has a butcher shop and it's in a predominantly Black community in Fort Lauderdale.
Mhm.
And I used to work there and I think about like what he sells and like, you know, most of the people pay with food stamps. Right. And so, you know, the meat's really good quality. He's really well known for that. It's very fresh. It's good stuff. But like, there's very little produce, you know, there's just like one shelf and then a lot of like juices with like high sugar stuff and just, you know, and I think about like, what would it cost to swap out to say like, hey, Goya or Badia or, you know, make better, don't put so much shit in your products, you know, like what, like, that's the work. Like I don't know the answers. I want to know this is what I want to get into because the food insecurity thing. And even like, can we go to the bodega and like, there can be better options there. Like, what is that profit margin really? Like, what would it take to either put pressure on those brands to just make less shitty food,
Do better,
do better, or, you know, have them stock like better stuff, but at a good price. Like, how does that work? I don't know. I want to know. I need to do the research and I want to affect change in that, you know? But I think about that a lot. And again, I don't know. I don't have the answers, although it is something that I feel passionate about.
Well, that's the thing, a few days ago, beginning of the month, whenever, when I was kind of posting about some of this, I think there's maybe like a little bit of intimidation in our space that's basically like, if I bring this up and talk about it, it means I also have to know how to solve the problem single-handedly.
Right.
I am not claiming that any of us working in this space know what to do, and are going to be able to single-handedly solve any of these issues. I mean, goodness sakes, one of the issues is climate change. Like, I'm not saying that we as health and wellness practitioners know how to solve that problem ourselves. But what we can do is get educated. We can help others get educated. We can have the conversations. We can start to imagine possible ways to change it and talk about it. When you live in an oppressive system, the first thing you lose is your imagination.
Yes.
So we need to be brave enough to imagine these new things. Like you're talking about, like, can we like call up Goya and like pressure them to change the way they make their products so that when the Hispanic community is using those products, they're getting a better quality? Like, I love that. We need all those conversations, and
Right.
and we need to talk about like our own experiences in this. I wrote about food insecurity for the autoimmune wellness blog earlier this month, and honestly, it's a conversation I've been having with myself for 8 years now, but I haven't had it as publicly as I needed to maybe have it. When I was a young, brand new mom, I was a single mom, I was on welfare, I was on food stamps for like 5 years, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I have thought to myself many times over the last 8 years, could I have realistically healed with something like AIP when I was on welfare? Could I have done that? And also, how important is it for me as a white middle class woman with successful businesses of her own now to say that I have had that experience so that it is safer in my community to talk about that
Yes.
and talk about how healing can happen in that context?
Right. Yeah. And the food insecurity and how that also, again, like my mother who lives in Cuba, and she has Hashimoto's, and she has a hard time with restrictive diets because she remembers not having food,
Yeah.
and she gets very
Yeah.
triggered by
Yeah.
like, when she doesn't have options or can't eat something, and it's that she can't, like the stress is too much. And these conversations are so important. And again, not like there's nothing wrong with being on welfare. Like,
Yeah.
destigmatizing these things. A lot
Yeah.
of people, and I bet if we started opening up the conversation, like, hey, here's a shopping list of stores that take food stamps and what you can get with it, or like
Yeah.
that is AIP friendly.
Yeah.
What are these things? I mean, even in the military, like a lot of the lower enlisted, young families,
Struggling.
they're struggling. They're on
Yeah.
food stamps.
Yeah.
Because, the military, again, because in this country, you can have a job and not get paid living wages, which
Yes.
is
So here we are. Like, here we are. We're here
politics.
again. We're here again at politics and root cause. We're calling it politics, but this is a root cause problem for health and wellness. I mean, part of the reason that I went on to develop 3 autoimmune diseases is, and I know it without a doubt, hands down, the extreme stress that I was under the first 5 years after my daughter was born, trying to make it as a single mother in this country on next to no money, and having to go through, honestly, some very humiliating experiences in the welfare system. Of course, that contributed to getting more ill over time. We need to talk about how that is happening. If you're living in a Black community and you're daily afraid of a confrontation with the police that could end your life in the street, of course you're going to be, subject to chronic illness. We need to talk about that stuff.
Right. And when you are dealing with chronic illness, and as we know, when you live with autoimmune disease, you cannot be strong all the time, right?
No.
And you are going to crash, you are going to have fatigue, and sometimes people don't even think like of that. Like, there are debilitating symptoms. There are people on disability because of their autoimmune disease, because literally
Yep.
the pain they're in, they cannot like get off their bed,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no shame in that, because it's this it's like this, the double-headed like snake thing. It's like it's
Yeah.
just it's a self-perpetuating cycle. But how, right? I don't have the answers to fix it all, but having the conversations in this wellness space needs to start happening. So people feel more welcome here, and two, so we can start learning what the needs are. So then that's how we
Start
start even
addressing the needs.
addressing.
Yeah. And listen, I know that we are capable of doing it if we treat it like a collaborative community care project. So that's another thing that I think we need to be a little more cognizant of in our space. And I definitely see how it comes out of white culture, most particularly American white culture. We are a little too stuck on that self-care concept. Self-care, self-care, self-care. Like your bubble bath is not what's going to help us. Your like afternoon tea and meditation is not what's going to help us. Now, I'm not saying that those things don't matter and that we shouldn't practice good self-care, but at this point, we need collaborative community care. And that is a form of self-care, because once your community is healthy and well and stable and secure, your life will be healthy and well and stable and secure. This is holistic. This is everything, and everyone is linked.
100%.
Listen, we got this community up off the ground, thriving, people making a living in this community, people healing in this community. We are doing medical research that's changing the standard of care in the medical system. We are capable of doing the next level thing next.
Right. And like we talked about this a little bit before we got on, but like that whole bootstrap theory where it's like in America, we talk a lot about like the individual and like, well, I made my success. I am self-made. Like I did it for myself. So the next person can do it too. And like, no, like there's such a small percentage of people who actually do that, who, we need to, when we think about the community and we lift each other up together, then we're all better. But there's this very like hoarder status, kind of like, well, I'm going to, take my success and it's mine and it's over here and I'm not sharing. And that's not how we get better as a whole.
Yep.
And that leaves them that stress. And think about, if you're doing great, but your neighbor isn't, are you really great? Seeing them suffer, seeing them struggle, like, wouldn't it feel, and like the one, like, oh, I'll help you out. This, a handout, they go so far, you feel good for 5 minutes. That's almost more for you than for them. But really helping people with the infrastructure, the tools to truly elevate themselves.
Yeah. Well, and it's the recognition that even the people who like bootstrapped it and individually did it, it's because the system works to benefit them. They are not like an island unto themselves. The system benefited them and worked for them, and we need to change that system so it can work and benefit everyone. And yeah, these are like big long-term projects, but we can do it. We are capable of doing it. And the first thing we got to do is have open conversations about it in spaces like social media, where it can't be just all beautiful food photos and great recipes every day. And again, I like them as much as the next person, and I've made a living partly doing that, but we can have these hard conversations too and band together and figure out how to move it forward in a way that's going to be good for everybody's health and wellness.
For sure. I agree. I think it's not going to be, easy. And I think that it is uncomfortable when you say, okay, I think the hardest thing for people is to say, how have I benefited from the system?
Yeah.
Because we don't want to kind of be that person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's the way, it's the world we live in. Like, even as a Latina, I have benefited from the system. I mean, my parents came here and they very bootstrapped it, but again, my dad, although his English is broken and he doesn't have, past a high school education, he's white. Like he's very, very fair skinned. And I'm sure that has helped him, in his, and again, it's just, it's all those little things where, we have these conversations all the time, and it's very hard for him to understand, because he's worked so hard his whole life. And I'm like, well, Dad, but, had we been Black Cubans, maybe our life would have been different.
Right.
I bet it would have,
right.
And I think people just have to understand that, and without getting so defensive. It's okay.
Right.
It's okay. Like that defensiveness of like clutching the pearls, happens a lot. It's like,
right. But solving these problems and helping our communities heal, it's like it's on the other side of that defensiveness.
right.
If we can let that down, we have so much to gain.
We really do. I so much to gain. And I think that, again, that you mentioned your and you did a really good post. Everyone, you have to go see Angie's feed on Instagram. It's phenomenal. But the imagination, we've lost imagination. That's the first thing that you're right. The first thing they take in an oppressive system is your imagination. Because imagine, I mean, and I think that it shouldn't be that hard, because there are other places that are doing better at this, where there's virtually no homeless people, where everyone gets an education, where everyone has healthcare. Like, imagine, I like the Beatles song,
Yeah.
imagine all the people.
There we go.
Oh,
It's true though. Like I think that part of the reason that we have so much trouble with this conversation is because for a lot of people it feels scary to imagine it.
Right.
It feels scary to think about the work to get to that beautiful thing that you imagine, but I mean, it's worth it.
But it means changing, like, some of the daily life things that we do. It means, like, maybe, it could mean paying a lot more taxes. It could mean, school system looking completely different. I don't know, like the defunding the policing that terrifies people. And I'm like, I get it that, like, maybe the slogan sounds a little harsh, right? But it's like, it's not about no police. It's about, what about another system where, people with weapons aren't called to mental health cases. I mean, there was a boy, what was it? Oh my gosh, it was in Salt Lake. It was in Utah.
Yeah,
A
the
little boy
little boy with autism.
And his uncle had been shot too, just a few weeks prior, another person with mental illness. And like, when you think about these horrible tragedies, and imagine if one family experiences it in a series, within a span of 3 months, like, you're going to tell me that's not a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think, but if we just imagine what another system would look like, where a trained mental health person would have showed up, I think, and I have a friend who's a nurse, and she says that all the time. She worked in the hospital. She's like, we get crazy, aggressive, dangerous people coming into the ER door every day. She's like, and no one gets shot.
And no one gets shot.
No one gets shot.
Exactly.
Like, maybe we should put nurses out there. Like,
Exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the thing, like, that defund the police, that means shifting, incredible, crazy resources that we're pouring into, law enforcement that's verging on violent and aggressive. Not even verging. It is violent and aggressive in a lot of cases. It means shifting those resources into places that could actually prevent a lot of the need for the police to be in those situations at all. If we had better healthcare for our communities, some of these mental health issues wouldn't need to have police intervention. If we had great funded schools, a lot of the situations where people end up committing a crime because they're trying to make a living for their family, they could achieve that in a different way. If they had homes and didn't have to worry about whether or not they were going to live on the street, the police wouldn't be interacting with them because they slept on a bench. We need to think about how to do that. And as far as, like, paying the higher taxes or whatever, we all pay taxes now and we are not getting much out of it. Our government is stealing that money from us, honestly.
Right.
We could be in a situation where we are benefiting from what we're paying, and it's worthwhile,
100%.
like, Denmark's out there, Sweden's out there, Norway's out there. It's not that hard to think about what it might be like.
Right. And people, like, and I think, like, it's not that, like, people like, oh, well, then my husband's a police, or I'm a police officer, well, what am I going to do? It's like, there will still be jobs, because there's going to be new opportunities. It's going to be new training and new things. It's not going to be leaving people without work. And it's not that, like, people who want to be police officers are bad, but we have to get over that defensiveness and acknowledge the problem.
Yep.
Get on the other side of the defensiveness and say, okay,
Yep.
I'm going to say, there is a problem. We can do better. How are we going to do that? How can we be part of the solution?
Because and how many opportunities are going to be created in that solution? New opportunities for you and your family members, to thrive.
For sure. 100%. And I think, again, going back to, how all this connects to the health and wellness space is health of people, health of a community, as we know, goes way beyond diet. And that's another thing, which even in the health and wellness space has been transitioning so much from that. I think we're all realizing after, kind of years of like food, we're like, there's so many other things. Like,
Yes.
you can eat great and still be sick. And that really encompasses, like, again, the level of stress, the access to food, the safety. I mean, I had, oh my God, people I was messaging in my followers in my inbox, like the day after Trump wouldn't denounce white supremacists in the presidential election. And some of my Black followers were talking, because I was posting about it, and they were like, I'm not leaving my house today. And I was like, holy shit, that breaks my fucking heart.
Yeah.
Like, they don't feel safe.
Yeah. And it should break our heart. We should feel that way. It should
And
bring
then what
up the
do we
emotions.
do? Right.
Yeah. We should want to correct that for people. The thing is, it's connected, and we can't ignore it. And doing the work is worth it. I don't know.
It is worth it. It is. And I mean, 14 days, right? Till we
14
vote.
days.
14 days. And we talked about this before. It's just the beginning. Like,
It's just the beginning.
The Biden-Harris ticket is a step forward, but again, it's like our work is not done.
Yep.
Right. And we have to keep it up. We are the watchdogs. That's our job. Like, they work for us. Our government works for us.
Yes, we the people.
We the people.
we
all of us.
we are not powerless. We need to resist the feelings of powerlessness. We have power, just like I have spent the last 7 or 8 years telling my community that they are empowered to do something about their autoimmune diseases, that they can take steps on their own to help themselves feel better. The same thing applies in these situations.
100%. Yes, we have the power and we have to exercise it.
Yep.
And amazing. Well, thank you so much, Angie, for coming to have this conversation with me today.
You're welcome. I did a better job having it with less potty mouth than I usually do.
Oh, it's okay. I curse all the time. It's fine. They're used to it. I mean, sometimes my editing guy will be like, if we edit this and this out, we can not be an R-rated episode. I'm like, well, whatever. Yeah. I'm like, I curse, it happens. But thank you so much. And everyone, we'll link a bunch of resources. So all of Angie's websites and Instagram accounts, as well as some other really great, just social justice information.
Yeah.
And if you're listening and any of this, stirred something in you, triggered something in you, made you feel uncomfortable, I invite you to sit with those feelings, kind of like resist the urge to go into that defensive corner, and just know that we've felt it. Angie and I have felt, we've had that upchuck of like, ew, and then had to be like, okay, just let me past it.
Yeah.
And then that's where the work starts.
Yeah, for sure. This is the truth is there's a hierarchy of needs, and we got to start with the base, guys.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I almost pressed end.